We're in the middle of this massive shift in how we all think about work. It feels like the old rulebook for success has been thrown out the window. So today, we're going to dig into what that actually means for all of us. Okay, let's kick things off with this really core idea. For the longest time, success was pretty simple, right? It was about output, it was about climbing that corporate ladder. But now, a whole new definition is bubbling up. One where, real achievement has to actually line up with who you are and what you believe in. And the key part, without totally burning yourself out in the process. And that's the thing, right? This isn't just a theory anymore. We've all just lived through it. A massive global event basically hit the pause button on the entire world, and it forced millions of us to ask that exact question. And believe me, the answers we're coming up with, they are changing the world of work for good. All right, so let's get into it. To really understand where we're going, we've got to look at where we've been. What did that old definition of success even look like? Well, before everything changed, a lot of those high-powered, ambitious careers could be summed up with one image: a pressure cooker. Just think about it. Constant high-stakes decisions, relentless deadlines, and this just immense weight of responsibility. It created this environment that honestly, for a lot of people, was already starting to feel like it was about to boil over. And of course, technology was the fuel for that fire, wasn't it? We were basically chained to our devices. It created this always-on culture where, it wasn't just a thing you did, it was an expectation. Answering that email at 10 p.m., taking a call on a Saturday, that was just normal. The lines between your work life and your actual life, they were just gone. And then everything stopped. The world was forced to take a breath, and that led to a huge reevaluation of, everything, especially work. Yeah, seismic shift is really the only way to describe it. This wasn't some slow, gradual change. It was this massive, totally unplanned experiment where millions of people went from the office to the kitchen table, literally overnight. And just like that, the entire dynamic of work was turned on its head. And what came out of that giant experiment is something researchers are calling a new psychological contract. Think of it like the unwritten rules between a company and its employees. And those rules, they got a complete rewrite. Flexibility suddenly wasn't this nice little perk anymore. Nope, it became a core part of the deal, a baseline expectation. So that brings us to what might be one of the most surprising results of this whole global pause. We're talking about a complete 180-degree turn in what people actually want from their jobs. For decades, the equation was super simple. A good job equals a good salary. End of story. Pay was king, the number one reason you took a job or stayed in one. But now, in this new world we're in, that whole idea has been completely flipped on its head. Okay, now check this out, because this is where the data gets really interesting. A huge global survey asked people what they value most, and for the first time, in the 22 years they've been doing this research, work-life balance is now the number one most important factor. It's tied with job security, sure, but look, it's actually ahead of pay. That isn't just a small change, that is a tectonic shift. And let's be clear, this isn't just a nice-to-have wish list item. This new priority has real consequences. Get this, nearly a third of all workers have actually walked away from a job simply because it wasn't flexible enough. It's gone from a preference to an absolute deal breaker. So what happens if companies just ignore this? What's the real cost of pushing back against this new reality? Well, that's where we need to talk about burnout. You see, the ultimate danger of that old pressure cooker way of working is a very real condition. The World Health Organization even officially recognizes it. It's called burnout. And it's basically this toxic trio of feeling completely drained of energy, feeling super distant and cynical about your job, and just feeling like you're not getting anything done effectively anymore. And the impact on mental health is it's stark. The numbers don't lie. Research shows that if you're working those insane hours, we're talking 90+ hours a week, you are 3 times more likely to show signs of depression than someone working a standard 40-hour week. The cost of overwork isn't just a feeling, it's a measurable health crisis. But, okay, on the flip side, what about companies that do get it right? Well, the business case for encouraging balance is actually incredibly strong. The research is clear. When a company actively helps its employees find that balance, they're not just being nice. They see real, tangible results. We're talking better productivity, more creativity, and people who are actually motivated and loyal. Okay, so we've laid it all out. The old way, the big shift, the risks. The big question now is, what do we do about it? How do we actually build a career that lets us be ambitious without burning out? A career that's actually sustainable? Well, the answer really comes down to being intentional. This isn't something that just happens to you, it's an active choice. First, you have to set clear, non negotiable boundaries. When you're off, you're off. Second, you've got to reframe how you think about self care. Things like sleep, exercise, or just relaxing, that's not a luxury. That's a vital part of being good at your job. And finally, you have to really embrace flexibility, using it to build your work around your life instead of trying to squeeze your life into the little gaps left over by work. And all of this really requires us to ask a much bigger question. What does achievement even mean anymore? Is it really just about a fancy title and a big paycheck? Or is it something more? A more holistic, more human way of looking at it would include things like your health and well-being, the quality of your relationships, whether you're still learning and growing, and, if you actually feel fulfilled by what you do. Ultimately, this is all about a mindset shift. It's about learning to see ambition not as a driver of exhaustion, but as a source of fulfillment. It's the difference between building a career that fuels you and energizes you versus building one that you constantly need a vacation to recover from. And so that brings me to the final thought I want to leave you with. If the old bottom line was always about the money, what's your new bottom line? In this completely reshaped world of work, how are you going to measure a life well lived?